From Software has come a long way in the video game industry. From being a pretty niche, like underrated studio, to now being a pillar in modern day gaming. They did things like Sekiro, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, amazing, fantastic games that define action RPGs. But before that, they were known for Armored Core. Fantastic, very niche kind of mech action adventure game. And a lot of people really didn't know about it, and a lot of people didn't really know if they would ever make another one, obviously, me included. And after the huge success of Elden Ring, I think a lot of us kind of just expected them to follow suit in this direction, really capitalize on that Souls game genre that they are just so known for. So when Armored Core 6 was announced, I don't know exactly what I was expecting, right? Because from Software, I really only played their Souls games. I never checked out Armored Core or any other type of game that they created before. So this would be my first time hopping into the Armored Core series and really into the mech action series, as I've never really played a mech action game before this. So I didn't know what to expect from playing Armored Core 6, but after my time playing the game, going through New Game Plus and just absolutely having a blast with the game, I want to go through, review my time with Armored Core 6 and how I could recommend this game and who I could recommend this game to. So I wanted to get into the world and the setting that Armored Core 6 takes place in. So you play as a mercenary in the planet Rubicon. You really work for a small team of people that kind of like work for the highest bidder. You're essentially looking around the world and investigating and learning more about it via your communication and your mission briefings with your partners, with your team members, with your leader. And it's one of those weird things where they want you to really, really feel like you're just in the robot and you don't really ever separate from that. So all your communication with your team and your characters is via like comms. You don't actually ever get to see their faces. You don't ever actually get to see them outside their mechs. It's very, very much like disconnected from like the people, and it's very much just the mechs, their missions. It is very, very isolated, it feels sometimes, where you're really just like the lone mercenary a lot of the times. And even when you are working with teams and you do get a lot of their personality when they engage with you, you don't really get much, beyond the surface. It's very surfaced, at least for majority of the time with Armored Core, where I don't really know if there's necessarily a standout character for me. Handler Walter will probably be the closest thing to like a standout character, but even then, it's just because I'm pretty sure the voice actor is pretty popular. I've heard him in a couple of things. So whenever I hear his voice, it just kind of reminds me of some of his other works that I've seen him in. But as far as this game's like roster of characters, world, settings, it doesn't really do much to really wow people. At least for me, I was very I don't know. I wasn't really engaged with the world, the setting, the environment, the story, any of that. Stuff that I thought was like pretty cool early on, like a lot of the comms talk, which I felt was very immersive. Really kind of like I didn't really care for much of it towards the end of the game, so it just didn't really do much for me there. Something that I felt like could have elevated the characters a little more would be if they had like the portraits of the characters when they spoke to you on comm. That way you kind of just had a little bit more of a connection with the voice outside of the mech, right? Because you understand that the mech isn't the character, there's a pilot inside the mech. But I understand that's not really the point of this game. Armored Core 6 doesn't really ask the player to really invest in any specific person. More so just acknowledge the mech's existence and the threat that they pose to each other. And overall, I think it succeeds in the fact that this game is very, very focused in on The fact that these mechs are an integral part of this universe, of this world. Something that I felt like really elevated Armored Core 6 was the personalization of your AC, where you can customize literally every limb, every weapon, every generator, like so much options in how you want to, spec out your mech. Definitely mattered so much to me, where I felt really like it was making a difference in combat, in the world, in how my mech not just looked but operated, and how great the changes were if you swap out the legs with like a tank leg or like a bipedal leg. It definitely changed your plan of attack based off the weapons you chose, whether it be more melee focused, whether it be more heavy ammunition but low damage, or heavy damage low ammunition. A lot of these things that kind of factored in to how I chose to play the game, and even how I chose to approach tons of the different bosses, where kind of like depending on the specific boss, I definitely had to adjust my mech to make sense for that fight. Things like switching out the different legs, things like switching out different cores, different weapons, different weights and capacities. Things, sometimes I wanted more ammo, sometimes I wanted more heavy duty, sometimes I needed melee attacks. It was very, very strange and not necessarily jarring, but definitely like it never made you feel comfortable with one specific build or even a direction of your build, right? I feel like when you play a Souls game, you kind of focus in on like, I want to do like a strength build or a dexterity build, etc. Where this game, one thing that might work, like one mech that might work for one fight, won't work for the next mission. So, for example, if you want to have a mech where it has very heavy, melee damage up front, that might not work in another fight where your enemies are staying a distance from you, so you need to shoot at them from long distance. So there's definitely a lot of things to factor in when customizing your mech and how you're going to approach very specific missions. But all this brings us to the highlight of Armored Core 6, and this is the action. The actual combat of Armored Core 6 is probably some of the best combat I've experienced in a game, where everything is so fast, crazy, frenetic. A lot of times I didn't even know if I was fully in control of situations. A lot of the enemies that maneuvered as though they were other players, not necessarily a bot. They were moving and making turns and blocking me and staggering me in ways that I was trying to do the same to them. So it definitely felt like some of the most intense combat I've experienced in a game. Not to mention like the different weapon varieties, build varieties, boss varieties. I never fought like a boss and felt like, oh, I've done this too many times in this game. It all felt very, different, for better or for worse. It all felt very varied, as well as just the environments and situations they put you in really made you stay on your toes and really assess what's best for this situation. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily as simple as just mashing every bullet, every button, and just dodging a lot. It's definitely how do I want to approach this specific fight? Do I want to stay far away? Do I want to be up close? And again, a lot of that really factored in really well with, specking out your different mechs, different like customization options. A lot of times for me, I had to spec everything, completely start from scratch again, because I would have like a build that was so like long distance focused, but some of the enemies weren't really working well in a long distance fight, and a lot of times I had to get up close, so I had to restart and respec sometimes. So a lot of those things that for me was very, very different, something that I wasn't used to, as well as just like focusing in on some of the different like level designs and enemy designs really, really shine through with Armored Core 6. And I feel like that's probably the highest highlight I can really give to From Software and their team right now with Armored Core 6, is that even though this isn't like a Souls game, right? Like, which is the genre that they've kind of really popularized and become known for, and they've completely switched shift to what, in my opinion, is very like opposite of a Souls game, because this is faster, again, more crazy, a lot more going on, very projectile focused sometimes, or very, like physical focus. And something that definitely shines through in, I think, all From Software games, no matter, at least for the longest time, is their attention to detail in the specific boss fights or even just enemy fights, where they're designed in a way to really not just make you, react or instinctually do certain things, but also kind of think about it, where you have to think about, okay, I'm losing here every single time. Why is that? And then you make the adjustments either as the player, or actually in the in-game, like respecking or recustomizing your mech, stuff like that. Again, Armored Core 6 does phenomenally, and this is a master class in action combat, whether it be mech or just any other action combat game. Armored Core 6 is definitely a huge standout, and overall, I mean, my time with Armored Core 6 was fantastic. Going into this game not knowing what to expect, and being treated with a bunch of amazing high octane fights that I'm gonna remember for a really, really long time. And you complement that with a new game plus that really feels worth going back and experiencing, where not only can you have a bevy of tons of other options that you haven't experienced or tried out yet, that your brain really, really wants to see how it is, but also just the different like events that happen throughout New Game Plus really, again, makes it so worth going back, not just a second time, but probably a third time, because that's how fun this game is, that's how engaging this game is, and that's how varied a lot of these fights can feel sometimes. Whether it be varied based off of how you build your mech, or varied based off of the different situations in New Game Plus or New Game Plus Plus. Yeah, again, overall, Armored Core 6 is an easy recommendation for anyone who loves action adventure games, action combat games. But if you're someone who's looking for like a deep lore, deep narrative, I would probably say this isn't the game for you, as this is a very, very linear experience where a lot of times the mission is just complete objective A, then go to objective B, then go to objective C, and mission. It's a lot of times it's not explore and look around, or be amazed by the scenery, because a lot of the scenery and environments are very dull and drab, and nothing really that like catches the eye. It's definitely more of like a feeling of like immense action and intensity that just feels very blockbuster, mechy anime style stuff that I absolutely loved and had a fantastic time. And I am so glad I was able to experience Armored Core 6. Anyways, you guys, I'm gonna end the video with those as my final thoughts. Do me a favor and like this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, as it does help us out tons. We have tons of other reviews, impressions. We sometimes do live streams. Definitely check out the channel if you guys are interested in it. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video.